was a nice turnaround on the notifications. This thing buzzed shortly after I went live, and I was like, what is that? Oh, I forgot. I have this set up with YouTube on my personal account. This extra phone that I have sitting around is the phone that I use around the project area when I just need a phone, or excuse me, around the main area when I just need a phone. And I have the YouTube on this set to the personal account where I'm basically subscribed to myself to see how the notifications work. I don't know if that will be really necessary anymore, and I can probably transition this old ZTE Blade Spark from 2017 to something else. But hey, yeah, mobile, it's definitely something. What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay. Some folks in the house live, and of course a big hello to all the people who will be watching this after the fact, which I know you exist. This is YouTube. It's not Twitch. The algorithms actually pass things around on here, and videos actually mean something, including stream replays. Unfortunately, the growth of the VOD frog culture on YouTube, as some Twitch people would call it, has been a little slower than it should be. And quite frankly, I don't really know if a lot of streamers really see the value of designing things to be watched after the fact yet. But we'll have a little bit of fun with that anyways, because sounding like I'm on the radio is something that definitely comes very easily to me. I wouldn't say comes naturally, because you do have to work on your impromptu speaking skills and things along those lines. So for tonight, there's a crap ton of stuff that I could be talking about. Heck, I even have a hard copy of the Bloomberg article about the changes to Twitch that were leaked. I think it's guerrilla marketing, to make a long story short. It's just a way to gauge public response to these proposed changes. But I'm not going to talk about it. This is worth its own discussion right here. And quite frankly, I have better things to do right now in terms of catching you folks up with what's going on, as well as stuff that's got me more fired up. For example, MMOs and their playing with dolls problem. So we'll put that aside. There's plenty of commentaries from people like Harris Heller, Devin Nash, and Asmongold that will suffice for now until I take a good look at this with my own unique take on things, because apparently, and this is one of the reasons why I don't get a lot of views, I come up with stuff that other people don't, probably because I have a different professional background than these popular people that are out there being the talking heads. But you know how algorithms work. Algorithms like to pass around similar looking content, so if I'm too different from the talking heads, good luck getting any views. And that's one of the ways in which original creative expression is suppressed on YouTube here in this algorithm-dominated era of the 2020s. So the playing with dolls problem for MMOs, in a nutshell, for those of you that want to stick around for the main discussion later, the idea here is this. If you ever knew somebody growing up who played with dolls, or if dolls were too much of a girl toy, action figures for guys, if you knew somebody who played with dolls, you will know that a lot of the entertainment came from their imagination and not necessarily the toys themselves, because the toys themselves didn't really do very much. I think we're at the point with some of these cash shops in games like Elder Scrolls Online, and maybe World of Warcraft as well, where maybe Final Fantasy too. Maybe all the MMOs have this problem in varying amounts. I think we're at a point where these developers need to take a very serious look at the fact that they're still programming a video game and ask themselves, how much fun do our players have because of our game as opposed to their imagination? So we'll save that for later, though. We got a couple of recap things to talk about. There's a crap ton of stuff that's been going on. I've certainly been chiming in on Twitter and saying a couple of things here and there. And of course, we have this. Bloomberg, oh, you're out of free articles. So I'm like, oh, I'm not losing access to this. Print it off. Amazon's Twitch seeks to revamp creator pay with a focus on profit. This was a leak, though. We don't know that literally any of this is ever going to happen on Twitch. So very important that you pay very close attention. When something is a leak, you have to wonder if it might have been leaked on purpose to gauge public opinion as a form of guerrilla marketing, essentially, without the company having to appear to commit to something. So that's not important. Let's start and we'll save that for some other time. Let's talk about the situation and why I haven't been around, and let's talk about the situation with myself and my dad, in that order. So first, let's talk about the 9-to-5ers. There's a very specific reason why this channel went silent and I haven't made hardly any progress on anything, and that was that I wound up with an injury to the ball of my right foot, down by where your toes are and stuff like that. Wound up with some inflammation and swelling, and it started getting hard to walk. So we mentioned earlier, at least I think I did, kind of just living day by day at this point, not thinking too much about what I might have seen or said 2-3 days ago or something. Just the most important stuff stays in my head. But here's how it all, let's just recap everything, especially for people that are just watching this now and haven't been really paying attention to my chat streams. So in the month of March, we had what's called EVTO, an extended voluntary time off during the slowest time of the year. In 2021, I had a back injury from a terrible, terrible winter with lots of heavy furniture going out. And I wasn't trained on the fork truck that uses a squeezer mechanic to pick up multiple heavy boxes at once. So when we had orders with like 5, 6, 7, 200-pound desks, I had to muscle those over myself. And so it was probably the worst winter I've ever had, with the most physical stuff that I've had in any job that I've had with these people in the past 15 years. Wound up with a herniated disc as a result of that. For those of you who don't know what that's like, that's when you got discs in your back and one of them gets a little worn and stuff, and it squirts out of where it's supposed to be and brushes up against nodes because you have liquid-filled discs in your back that keep it flexible and stuff. They do kind of get a little tougher and harder with age, but when you're around my age, in the middle of everything, that's when you're more likely to have lots of problems, because you're not old enough really to be absolutely gristled and, you know, hardened up, so to speak, but you're not young anymore either. So a lot of if you look at, you know, the problems like this, they often happen to people in their 30s and 40s. So basically what that means is a constant pain that doesn't go away. You take something for it, you can do some back stretches for it, but fundamentally, unless the disc stops pressing against the nerve so much, then it's just going to be a persistent thing that comes and goes, and it's probably tied to activity. And that's basically what I was running into. This was tied to activity, but picking furniture was part of the job. So, and last year with the pandemic rearranging when we had stuff going on, we didn't get a chance to take time off to rest up, so to speak, because stuff was busy at times when it wasn't, and vice versa. So there was no real way to have that happen earlier. I was like maybe a person or two in the building that got to take time off, but it wasn't like it was in previous years. This year I sprung for it in part because of the to-do list that I had sitting around with tech projects and stuff that built up in 2021 because of all the extra medical appointments because of the back injury. So, and now that things have settled down a bit, and in going back from this, I found out that the furniture is now being relegated to, get this, people whose entire job is to pick big, heavy, bulky, and awkward items. Well, yeah, you know, common sense, right? You know, gives a task like that to the people that do it the most. Who'd have thought, right? So, besides all of that, bottom line is, I didn't know any of these changes were happening until I actually went back. I assumed that when I went back from the month off that I would be doing what I was doing before. And so there'd be furniture and stuff, so take the time to rest up, see how much better the back thing gets, and then figure out where we're going when I get back to work. Found out about the changes after the fact. But at the same time, the entry-level, less-than-case part of the building, which has the most walking around, and you bend and flex the most, it's basically the most cardio in the building, needed a crap ton of help. So here I am over there helping them out night after night after night, over and over again, spending more time doing my old job before I got to the one I do now. Spending more time doing my old job, coming off of relaxing around the house, trying to rest up from the injuries. And so I go back to a level of physical stuff that's higher than what I was already used to before I took a month off from it. Needless to say, all that charging back into, you know, one of the most physical in terms of cardio parts of the building had its consequences. Waking up every day feeling like I tried to kiss an express train, as they said in the Rocky Balboa movie. So nothing like waking up feeling like you'd been smacked by a bus. It's just like, I do know that was exercise, though, because my joints were routinely so warmed up from all of that I could use less blankets at night. That's a sign, you know, that I'm actually getting enough exercise, and it's challenging stuff. So, needless to say, that piling up over 5 days can be pretty exhausting on the weekends, And also that piling up all of that charging around from resting for a month would cause problems because you're getting too physical too quickly. And now here we are. So, I mean, my doctor mentioned icing things up a bit to, counteract the pain and the swelling. But it's just one of those things where you're like, oh crap. I mean, this is the sort of thing that happens when athletes train too hard and stuff like that. If we can get past all of this, though, I'd like to get into better shape overall and stay there so we don't have these kinds of shocks to the system ever again. Also want to lose weight so that the laws of physics can be more on my side, because I realize there's the whole fat acceptance or whatever out there. That's tyrannical positivity, as I would like to say. It's one thing to, try and make yourself better. It's one thing to try and make yourself better by not letting people shame you because of the state you're in physically. It's something else completely when you think you can ignore the laws of physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. If you weigh more, no matter what your mental state is with regards to your physical fitness, if you weigh more, every step, every impact, everything hits harder and potentially does more wear and tear on stuff like joints or your knees or whatever it is. So there is nothing wrong with trying to better yourself physically. There is everything wrong with denying the laws of physics being the reason why you should do so, which is why I don't fit in with the body positivity people, even though I'm a fat guy. Go ahead, call me fat, and say it is something bad, because it is. I'm living my life essentially at war with the laws of physics, and that has consequences whether I like them or not. Just the way it is. So, considering how crappy I felt and how I probably took it easy too much last year and felt even crappier to try and rest the back up a bit, if we can ever get out of this mess, I would like to actually be in better shape than before, even if it means getting a harder job. Also, getting in better shape physically would mean I could go to a harder place and get away from this, we VTO most of the year, and then we cry our eyes out when we actually have to be full-time employees during that slim part of the year when you actually get 40 hours a week. No, I'm not settling for that. I'm not settling for an environment where your wage increases from cost of living or whatever get offset by VTO. And I'm not settling for an environment that just looks more and more and more like people that just aren't doing well and doing their darndest to hide it. So there will be changes later this year. I mentioned earlier that Project EVTO was a mistake, and I'm doubling down on that. I don't think I should have done what I did for Project EVTO. I think I should have very quickly went and tried out one of the harder places to see if I could handle it. I can definitely tell you that what happened with the tech videos in March is not going to happen again. I would rather have a YouTube channel with less going on than something like that, especially with what I've come back to. And what I've come back to is an environment where, I end up injured, but everyone's like, oh no, we need you where the volume is, They just double down on it, even though we know full well that when you know something bad is going on, and you double down on blowing it off, it's negligence. This is why workers' comp is a thing. I find it interesting because with the management materials floating around YouTube, particularly about what to do if your workers are trying to organize a union, some of the rhetoric you hear from those videos is, your associates have declared war on you. Very strong incendiary language for a manager to think that the people who work for them have declared war on them. But what do you call it when it goes in the other direction? What do you call it when you run people into the ground and won't take initiative to keep your people from getting injured or to keep injuries from getting worse? Especially when you've told somebody who's been in this position that you don't want things to get worse. And that's why you want to follow certain processes or whatever, or report injuries or whatever. So, I don't know. I'm not going to try and figure these people out. Bottom line is, in this world, you have to do what's best for you. There is something, you don't have to be the most selfish jackass in the world, but having a little bit of selfishness is actually something quite constructive, especially standing up for yourself. Because one of the ways in which things work in this world is that if you don't stand up for yourself, you're going to lose to somebody who does. Whoever stands up for themselves wins. So don't let yourself get treated like crap. And better yet, remember, too, that you are an agent in a marketplace if you're getting treated like crap. And that's one of the things that I don't think these 9-to-5ers understand. Number one, they're an underdog employer in the local warehouse scene. They don't have the money to stay competitive on wages. They don't have the money to stay competitive on other things. They can pretend it's the 2000s all they want. It's the 2020s. Very different world, very different reality. They're the little guy. They need to have a different approach, and they need to treat people differently. That they can't just be using people up and throwing them away or insulting their best people out the door so that all that's left is toxic people who just cry about the job because they won't take the initiative to get a better one, or people that are getting skills to go off to a better place, and they essentially turn into a de facto training facility with toxic people just getting annoying along the way. But you go there and you never stay there. If you're 19, 20, 21 years old and you're just getting into warehousing because you don't want to deal with people in a retail environment or something like that, you go in, you pick up your skills, you get in shape, you go somewhere better. That's the world we're heading towards. So any good people these people have, they need to fight like crazy to keep them there. And I don't think there's any fight left in these people. I don't even think they can even come to grips with the fact that that's the position that they're in. So no, I want to be in good enough shape to go to a harder building. I want to be in good enough shape to go to a harder building. This place can be more along the lines of places that I can retire to. There's a whole thing going on with the tech job, but I'm not going to sit around waiting because my experience with IT people has been that they blow you off and ultimately don't hire you. And I've also run into nepotism when it comes to IT as well, particularly with my college. So I don't expect IT hiring managers to ever have their people's best interests in mind, especially with how crappy tech people have been treated. There's a reason why I have backgrounds in technology and warehousing. The warehousing background is a result of the Great Recession, when I saw tech people getting treated like garbage and going years without a job. But I don't know if really, considering the state of technology in corporate America these days, if that's really worth chasing after. It's just like, you have nowadays, you fast forward to today, after decades of treating computer information systems, data science, and other people who majored in this stuff like garbage, after all this time treating your tech people like crap. Oh, look, corporate America has a ransomware problem. There's an identity theft problem. There's a data breach problem. Can't possibly imagine why. Now, can we? Well, when you have decades of treating people like second-class members of the company or firing core associates to rehire them as independent contractors, that garbage eventually adds up. So when I was growing up and when I was thinking about going off to college, I was fed the millennial fairy tale of get a degree, graduate, go to a higher earning bracket, have no problems paying off your student loans, blah, 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 blah. I was fed that garbage. And you know what? Sadly, there are Zoomers going to college who are being fed the exact same crap. The way the world really works is you have your dream job, and then you have being a dream to someone else jobs, where you can get into a place and they will actually appreciate you more because you're taking care of something that was a pain in the ass than to get anyone in the first place. Find good people, they're probably more worth. Working with good people is probably more worth it than working a good job that's like out of your dreams from when you went to college. You'll probably get treated better and have better mental health. And of course, with the Great Recession fundamentally changing how entire generations view work, and the rise of flex work, freelancing, and other stuff, or even like, what I do, part-time YouTubing, essentially, where you work a job that's not the most awful or hardest job in the world, so you have time to work on something else and keep your skills current, and have a mix of things. Have one steadier job covering benefits and more other stuff like that, and then have stuff that might be more, volatile or more something else going on that you're more passionate about. And I think, too, even on YouTube and in content creation, you have the same thing going on. How many years have I watched YouTubers complain about videos I have to make versus videos I want to make? And then it's bleeding over into the streaming world, too. There are Twitch streamers complaining about the exact same stuff. So, anyways, that's the lesson I've learned, though. It's not just about what you went to school for. It's about what your local community needs. You want to be respected? Yeah, you can mention what your formal background is. But if there's this felt need in the community that you solve, if there's this pain that you solve, that's one real good way to get good people to like you. And if people don't like you for solving that problem, they're not good people to be working for anyways. And you've just found out one of the reasons why they can't keep people working for them. So, yeah, agency. Think about where you're at, no matter how stupid your job is. So I can tell you, it's pretty easy to make $20 an hour as a warehouse person around here. So the warehouse wild card has come back. The local warehouse scene is disrupting other forms of employment around here again. So if you actually want to work, there's money in it, and just go where the money is. Just don't wind up in a total sweatshop that does 16-hour days and has people actually injuring out the door because it's just like, because people are expendable and they wonder why they run out of people to work for them. Yeah. The Great Resignation has really thrown a wrench into a lot of that, hasn't it? Yeah. So that's the situation. That's why I haven't been around much, because I've been exhausted and in pain. If I come home and I have to ice up my foot and focus on that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do videos. I'm not going to do streams. Just going to put the foot in a bucket of cold water, play some ESO, maybe throw some ice in it. The water that comes out of the cold water that comes out of the tub faucet here is really cold. So the big thing with icing your feet is to not give yourself frostbite in the process. So doctor was talking about, take a bucket of cold water and use that, so you don't have to worry about where the ice pack is or massaging it or something. So yeah, as long as I have to keep doing that, we'll just relax in front of ESO or World of Warcraft or something. Yeah, I resubbed to WoW, by the way. That'll be part of our main discussion later. But I'm going to be taking another look at, now that we have the discussion about World of Warcraft Dragonflight, I'm going to be taking a look at the Chromie time problem, as I'm going to call it. Used to be their level 49 problem. One of the biggest design problems in the game is that it resembles ESO until you get to Shadowlands, then you're locked out of all the old places. Yeah, I'm going to double down on Chromie time should be expanded to after you're past that level range. We'll see if Blizzard is ever smart enough to actually give their players the freedom to do this. But that's a totally different discussion altogether. All right. 25 minutes in, let's go to recap topic number 2. And let's talk about the situation with my dad. So, we had a father-son get-together. Can't remember. Did I bring this up with the recap last time? Probably. We'll just, again, for the people that only watch this, we'll do this for them. So, I'm waiting to hear back from my dad. Do I have email on this thing? I don't think I have my email set up on it. I'm waiting to hear back from my dad. See, it would be under Gmail if it was a different version of Android. Let me go into Gmail on this. I think it's set up on I think it's actually set up on no, I'm not seeing anything from him. Yeah, so I do have my email on this thing. Nothing from Dad yet. We'll probably get that around 11 o'clock or something. He's a night guy just like me. Must be where I get it from. He retired and now he gets up late morning, early afternoon, and stays up until 12, 1 in the morning. So he has the sleep schedule I would have if I wasn't staying up until sunrise working on YouTube videos or playing video games. Anyways, so we had a father-son get-together that was supposed to happen during EVTO, happened earlier. And we revisited the situation with the Lenovo featured in the Lenovo videos from 2016. The H505 ENUS, which I think now means English US. Why it took me this long to figure that out, I don't know. The videos are up under Lenovo Weekend 2016, but I might actually be expanding that to include the story of the Lenovo machine and whatnot. So basically, the E-machine that's over there right now was my dad's computer that he got, ripped off by Best Buy from, so to speak, in the 2000s. When that started getting old and slow, he was ready to go buy another off-the-shelf system. And I was like, look, considering what you had happen with that E-machine, let me actually get involved in finding an industry standard computer with some upgrade potential that you can use, and then we'll just do it that way. So he wound up going with this Lenovo box, which is very unproprietary compared to a lot of the retail systems that I saw. At a Core i3, 2 cores, 4 threads, so a little bit of punch, Haswell era, so you need to take special DDR3, like DDR3L or something, if I want to upgrade the RAM in it. So He's had this Lenovo, 4 gigs of RAM, Core i3 from the Haswell era. Works okay for email, but it has a mechanical hard drive. And so between the 4 gigs of RAM and the mechanical hard drive, it was rather chuggy when I first set it up. We noticed the slowness, especially with how Windows 10 has gotten more bloated, and also with how programs have gotten more bloated in the last 5 years. Also, don't forget 5 years of mechanical wear and tear on a hard drive might slow it down as well. So the system was chuggy back in 2016. It's now 2022. Of course, my dad doesn't want to risk losing all of his files or something. So when we did our thing where I checked out like the flowers he's growing down at his place and stuff like that, when I made that trip down there and went down to the old house and stuff like that, when I took the trip down there and I actually took a look at what's going on, let's see, get this over to this page, I noticed that it had gotten a lot more chuggy. And I was like, you put up with this every night? And he's like, oh, I make it work. And I'm like, you don't realize what you've been missing. I've had SSDs since 2010, and I've enjoyed the snappier experience of using SSDs. I've enjoyed the snappier experience of using SSDs since 2010. I've been doing all of this stuff, and I think it's about time you got in on the action as well. Please mute Twitch. I just want to see if something's going on here. Oh boy, content nerfs. Let me just go down to the bottom of my list here. Holy crap, guy that used to get like 15 concurrents now barely has any viewers. That's what happens with Twitch when you don't grind away. Well, let's save those for after the other stuff for later. So I went down there and I was like, look, this chuggy experience is just a bad use of your time. You really shouldn't be changing the way you do things or spending more time than necessary because your computer can't keep up. I've had SSDs for years. There's no moving parts to them. It'll be a much better experience even with an old computer like this. He actually, after a little bit of discussion as to why I do what I do, the generation gap was dissolved and he understood where I was coming from. And he said, yeah, let's go for it. So over here, we have a Samsung Evo 500 gig and a Sabrent 2.5 to 3.5 bracket for mounting this SSD into the Lenovo and making it into, after all these years, a proper SSD machine. And he can finally enjoy the snappiness, particularly of running an OS off of an SSD. He doesn't have M2 because the system doesn't support M2. It only has serial ATA, so fortunately it's under $100 to get a 500 gig SSD running your system. He also doesn't run games or anything. He just does email, but I think just the snappier experience overall will be a lot better for him. Plus, we might we'll just leave things as is on his mechanical drive in case we have to hook things back up, in case he doesn't like it or that thing's defective. And we might just do a clean install of Windows 10, put his software on there, and then convert what he has to a data drive later for backing up his stuff to. Because we know that, using a mechanical drive for data only is a lot less wear and tear than using it as a system drive. So he can probably get more years out of the mechanical drive in that Lenovo by doing that. Of course, he could also burn CDs to back up his most critical stuff. He still has an optical drive in that thing. Put some DVDs in there. He probably doesn't have more than a couple of gigs of files or pictures or something to put on a burnable disk. So, of course, or use SD cards or something along those lines. There's plenty of thumbsticks, the whole 9 yards. He has plenty of options available to back up his data. Heck, he could probably even use Microsoft OneDrive if he's using mostly pictures. So, my dad finally agreed to it. The SSD is in. I didn't know when it would arrive today, but we're probably looking at next Friday for the upgrade. Which means get the next tech video done and stop with the tech videos. Because there's more things I want to do, but I think those will take too much time. And if I get clobbered next week, like we've done the last couple of weeks, or if I get or if I'm too tired from work and stuff to work on that kind of stuff, then we might have a whole thing with the computer. Whatever computer I put over there might still be there on Friday, and we'd have to move it out of the way anyways. Plus, I'm trying to figure out, considering how he's been towards my involvement in new media, I'm trying to figure out if he actually wants to be in one of my videos. So, Here's the situation. He's been joking about the MultimediaJay stuff lately. I don't know how much of a generation gap still exists regarding this stuff. I'm tossing around the idea, similar to what the streamers are doing when their parents get involved. He can grab a blue shirt and a pair of sunglasses and join the fun. Here's the thing, though. In order to upgrade his Lenovo is the only machine he has. So in order to upgrade his Lenovo, he has to come over here. We got to do the upgrade. It'll probably be like an afternoon evening thing, or I'll get up early and it'll be early afternoon into the evening, and then he'll just drive home and hook it up. Or he'll send his email from here and then just take the machine home with him. It's probably going to be a day trip for him because he has nothing to do email with. Wouldn't be, and it's not that big of a deal, especially with 200 megabits down, to set up Windows and everything in the span of a few hours. Maybe make a tech video out of it. I don't know if there'll be something yet. The range of what can happen is this: no video, regular tech video with him as a voice in the background, and we just integrate that in, but he never goes on camera, or tech video where he's on camera in some way, shape, or form, with the same similar getup and stuff like that, like father, like son, or in this case, the other way around. I hook him up with one of these blue comfy shirts and a pair of shades, and we get to work on things. The most extreme thing, and I think this would be pretty hilarious, think like Elders React over on the React Network. Matt, here's the thing. We're putting an SSD in a system. The only thing that really requires is a small screwdriver and plugging a few cables in. I wonder if he would actually have a ball being able to brag to his friends in his emails about how he upgraded his own computer. I just tell him what to do and show him how it's done. We grab a serial ATA cable for the new drive and hook up the power to it. It's literally just two plugs. We're literally just plugging in plugs and using a screwdriver to put that on the bracket and then put the bracket inside the machine. It's literally something he could probably do even with next to no mechanical skill. I think you get a kick out of how easy it is. So we're not installing a motherboard. We're not doing anything super fancy. And then I could show him just how user-friendly installing Windows is these days. You know, especially with Cortana talking to you all the way through all of that. So, yeah, we could set that up. And it would be entertaining as all heck, I think. Just got to figure out what the scope of all of this is going to be. If he doesn't want to do any of this, and if he doesn't want a video of the computer getting upgraded, then there just won't be a video. I'll take care of this for him, and we'll get back to the other stuff. But it's all a giant question mark right now because he's been cracking a lot of MultimediaJay jokes lately. So I'm actually curious if maybe, just for once he can give this a shot and kind of see what it's like. He's gonna have to dress up for it though. We are talking about cameras here. So haircut, comb his hair, get out of the whole retired. I don't have to worry about how I look because I'm retired and I just do gardening stuff all day. I'll go to Walmart, get another one of these shirts, hook him up probably tomorrow, or I'll just have it for me if he doesn't want to do any of this kind of stuff. And I've certainly got plenty of extra shades around. Just got to make sure the ones he's wearing aren't polarized or won't be able to read the screen. I'll be the one doing this with the polarized stuff and that little issue. Yeah, so we're going to talk about what the scope of this is going to be, and we'll see how far it goes. But because of that, even though I have more plans for the e-machine over there, we're going to finish the video that we're working on right now, and we're going to stop the tech videos. I don't think I can get anything else done in time for the Lenovo to show up. So we'll get that done and clear that out so there's room for the Lenovo, get the Lenovo stuff done, and then we'll proceed with stuff over there. Probably do some gaming streams or some other stuff in the meantime, because I resubbed to World of Warcraft. Logan, it'd be pretty cool if you got him to do it, lol. This is the thing, too. When I first got into PC hardware, I thought it was really complicated. And I knew some folks who were building computers in the 90s that had to worry about jumper settings in the whole 9 yards. It wasn't until I got the Upgrading Repairing PCs book by Scott Miller that I noticed it's actually relatively simple. You just have to make sure everything's compatible. And let me relate it to something I knew at the time growing up in the 90s. Plugging in RAM, if it's not like SIM or something like that, is basically a video game cartridge without a hard plastic shell being plugged into the slot. That's it. I think if you're not into technology, a lot of your technophobia comes from weirdly thinking that tech is more complicated than it actually is. I seriously think he'd be surprised that I would even bring this up. And as long as he doesn't muscle something and break something, give him a small screwdriver and show him just how it all goes together. I mean, I could tell him exactly what to do, where to mount things, stuff like that. That would be hilarious. And then he'd have some... Look, the thing is, we have more in common than you would think, despite the generational differences. So, I mean, I do this kind of stuff, persona type stuff. He keeps things more personal because he's not really into this persona stuff. He doesn't have the background for it either, and he has no chance of catching up. So, but, I mean, he does emails, and he regularly, you know, tries to be entertaining with stuff he writes about in emails. This is content for him, too, with, like, the family and friends that he sends his nightly opinion article emails to. So, this is something that he has that he could actually benefit from as well. And he could go bragging about it. It's like, holy crap, this is what my kid's been doing for the last 20 years. So, I'm actually going to talk about... He'll probably email me like towards the middle of the night about this when he gets around. He sent out his opinion article for the night. Now he's probably working on emails. So we'll go back and forth on this a little because we have until next Friday to get this right. Him and my stepmother go out on Saturday nights, and their date night now is basically grocery shopping because there aren't really very many places that they want to go to anymore, especially with the pandemic. And it's doubly, especially with the Northeast having the most COVID going around. But the national guidance from the CDC says, oh, yeah, there's not a problem in most of the country. You can take off your masks, blah, blah, blah. And there's a bunch of people that aren't looking at the important details in the numbers and the methodology. So here in the Northeast, we should all be masking, plain as day. Our numbers for cases per 100K in the state of Connecticut are where they were when Delta was going around a little before Omicron took off, and we're going in the wrong direction. We also have a new subvariant, BA2121, 21 Savage variant, I don't know. That's the joke around here anyways. We also have that new subvariant going around that came out of New York, and it's lighting up New York, even on the CDC's new maps, indicating threats to the healthcare system in the state of New York, particularly upstate New York. So you have all of this going on, and it's just, the people are like, oh, Fauci says the pandemic is over. Fauci, by the way, clarified his statement that it's not, the real thing that's going on is there's no national wave. He did, however, decide to not go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, considering he's 80-something years old, and D.C. area is that the southern tip of this Northeast COVID area that we essentially have in this country right now. So, needless to say, my folks are being tenacious because even if they do survive because they're vaccinated and boosted, even if they do survive because they're current on their shots, why would they want to sit around the house feeling like crap at any point in their retirement when they could just be enjoying their retirement, especially with how nice things have been weather-wise around here? It's what is it? April 29th, May started a little early around here. We got a bunch of rain earlier in the month, but now we've actually had warm, dry Chamber of Commerce weather. Beautiful. Fire warnings because it's a little too dry outside. So the weather's been amazing. With the way things are right now, why would you want to be stuck in bed or on the couch with minor COVID symptoms because you caught it from whoever? It's just like, I think this is just they're introverts to begin with, but at the very same time, they worked as much as they did to get to actually enjoy their retirement. So even though they don't have a job that might be on the line, because if they get sick or something like that, they just want to enjoy their retirement. So getting anything, even seasonal allergies, will put a damper on that. So, of course, they're going to be tenacious about COVID. Speaking of which, before my dad comes over here, I will take a antigen test to make sure I'm still negative, just out of respect for the guy. So I'll probably have a burning nose the day that on Friday before he's supposed to come over. So, but I'm the one that's still wearing masks at work. I'm the one observing the social distancing and actually following the policies and stuff like that. So I'm still being tenacious as all heck. I do my shopping when Walmart's about to close, so all the idiots who don't want to do anything after dark and their kids are all out of the store. So Yeah, I'm still very much being tenacious because the Northeast still has a problem. Go to the community transmission from the CDC and to see it for yourself. The Northeast still has a problem. We should still be masking. We should still be requiring masks. We should still be doing all the mitigation stuff. The rest of the country is more of a patchwork. If it stays that way, they can do whatever they want. But the Northeast has a problem. And we need to act like there's a problem, because otherwise we're denying the reality of our situation. But that's another discussion for another day. We just need to, at this point, with this video that my dad, might or might not be involved in, we got to see what the scope of that's going to be. He's been joking a lot about MultimediaJay lately, though. I got a feeling that there's this nagging curiosity, and even though he won't be a YouTuber, just to do it once. So we'll be following protocols over here, though. We'll edit out anything. We'll edit things, of course, and he'll do the sunglass thing just like I do, and he'll be wearing a blue shirt. There will be a dress code for this darn thing. But we'll see what he does or does not want to do. But I got a feeling he's going to be over here until his computer works again, because he won't want to make multiple trips, for one thing. And this is probably something we can get done in an afternoon. We're talking about installing an SSD and putting Windows 10 on the machine and then copying his files and other stuff over. It shouldn't be too hard. And we can actually keep his existing mechanical drive as a backup until we get this right, and then set it up as a data drive. Unless he wants to leave it as is, but then we got to figure out the boot drive stuff and things like that. But I don't think it would be hard at all to get him going on an SSD and have him get to see for himself just how much snappier an SSD is than mechanical hard drive, especially when you've had your mechanical drive churning away running your system for over 5 years. I think even on that i3, he would notice a difference. Still can't game on it. It only has integrated graphics, but I think we'll be okay with that other stuff. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on. We are at 45 minutes in, so I guess we're going to end up with another hour and a half stream here. Let's refill some drinks, and let's get ready to talk about the main discussion. MMOs have a playing with dolls problem. Because this, out of everything that's going on right now, including Elon Musk versus Twitter and all the other stuff, it is actually this game design issue that actually has me worked up the most and wanting to do something about it, including possibly fundamentally changing my YouTube channel to do other things like video essays as a result of it. forget it. Just forget it. Just because I'm back right after the song flips doesn't mean I'm going to wait for the whole thing. I was a little bit delayed. I wasn't expecting to stay out as long as I thought I was, but I had a little mishap with this Price Chopper Diet root beer. I can still feel it too. This has a lot of pressure in it. There it goes. Stop. Went to have a drink of I went to have a drink of this stuff, and it went full Diet Coke with Mentos on me. Just whoosh, as you just saw here with this foam building up the minute I opened it. Like, what? This stuff is pressurized like more than regular soda. Little bit. Not as bad as it was before. I'm going to keep this tight, though. We're not drinking any of this. It's like, hey, I want to have something besides the stuff I usually drink on stream. Let's just grab a sip of this stuff. So I go to open it up. I got to clean the kitchen. It's not all that great anyways. It's 99 cents, and I think it's because it tastes like a mouthful of sucralose with a little bit of root beer on the side. We shall put that on the floor, though, for the rest of the stream. So if it explodes, whoop-de-doo, I just scrub the carpet or whatever. Actually, an area rug, excuse me. But, man, the stupid things that happen when you're live. Either way, we got the drinks refilled. Let's talk about our main discussion of the night. Okay, MMOs have a playing with dolls problem. Where do we even begin on this? Well, where we begin on this is the game that inspired me to start talking about this. Elder Scrolls Online. For the last several years, ESO has been my favorite MMO for various reasons. One of them being the heavy emphasis on player freedom. You can pretty much live another life in Tamriel, so to speak. You can basically do all kinds of stuff, and the player has freedom to do the content in whatever order. There's also, of course, the difference between ESO and WoW is that content in ESO is literally makes the world bigger, as opposed to all that matters is the current raid, or all that matters is the current expansion. This is a design decision that I have appreciated for years, and then seeing familiar destinations like Morrowind, Vardenfell from Elder Scrolls Morrowind, parts of Cyrodiil from Elder Scrolls Oblivion, including the Blackwood expansion taking place in the southern part down by Leowen. Skyrim, of course, was represented in Greymoor. And then there's the areas that are intrinsic to ESO themselves, some of the player houses, my character having multiple castles, and player housing and furnishings essentially being a form of endgame content. Elder Scrolls Online has basically been a game that World of Warcraft would have done well for itself to catch up to. We don't see that, though, from Blizzard, though. What we see from Blizzard's developers over and over again, little wonder there was this problem with all of the harassment lawsuits and things like that, if this kind of culture was a problem over at Blizzard. What we see from Blizzard over the years is hubris and arrogance and ego, and constantly kicking against the bricks whenever other games have a good idea. If another game beats WoW to the punch on a new idea, on a good idea, the Blizzard devs will talk around in circles and give lots of boilerplate excuses and do everything they can to convince you that it's a good idea in their game, but it's not a good idea in our game. And just constantly double talking around in circles, gaslighting, manipulating the whole 9 yards as to why it shouldn't be in WoW. Then, after they've kicked against the bricks long enough, they sheepishly introduce the feature, but their ego sabotages them still further, and they half-cook it. One of the reasons why I resubscribed to World of Warcraft is to stream the game. And one of the things I want to do in my gaming streams for WoW is level up some Chromie Time problem characters who I will level freeze at level 49. So that way, they resemble my main characters, but they'll be stuck at level 49, so they can go anywhere in the pre-Shadowlands stuff and have it actually be somewhat playable and somewhat challenging. So we're going to take that direction with it, because right now, beginning with Shadowlands, this whole player agency thing that Blizzard was talking about is a half-cooked version of the player freedom that exists in ESO. So as part of that, I'm going to just be showcasing this. Never got to play Shadowlands anyways, and with Elder Scrolls being an eclipse for the time being because of High Isle, and High Isle not looking as interesting as it otherwise would, I'm taking a look at possibly bouncing between the two MMOs, or even for the first time ever, canceling my ESO Plus membership. It renews annually, so High Isle comes out in June, and so I have a month to play it and decide whether I want to keep playing ESO in general. What's going on with ESO, with all the Crown Store cosmetics and home furnishings, excuse me, there goes the root beer. With all the microtransactions from the Crown Store, all the furnishings and all the various ways to earn things in game have been nerfed. For example, all those wonderful furnishings for Leyawiin and Pantherfang Chapel, the Leyawiin ESO Blackwood furnishings are tied to Ivory Brigade clasps, which only have a chance to drop from your dailies. It's not a guaranteed thing. So you have to have your alts all grind Leyawiin dailies. The crafting dailies won't do it. But you can have your alts, you have to have your alts grinding daily quests from Leyawiin to maybe get those materials, and it's less reliable than, say, the, what was the other one called from Somerset? The Kulanda lacquer, that's what it was. The stuff that I made the pews with in the Paladin Cathedral, Grand Sigic Manor. That was something where you just did the quest, you got one per quest. That was nerfed with Leyawiin. With Ivory Brigade clasps, it's only a chance to drop. And this isn't the first time that ZOS has done stuff like this. ZOS also nerfed jewelry crafting when it was added to the game, so it's a lot harder to max out your jewelry than it is to max out your armor and your weapons. So there's been all of these hidden little nerfs in Elder Scrolls that just betray a nasty attitude from the developers towards their own player base. And now you factor that in with Gina Bruno and the problems she has with how she communicates with players, as well as Slashlurk and the disdainful attitude towards players when it comes to people calling out ZOS for their misplaced resources when there are bugs in the game that have been around for years that still haven't been addressed, while Crown Store bugs get addressed very, very, very quickly. You know, you add all of this up, and what we have is essentially an Elder Scrolls Online where the developers are starting to act like Blizzard devs before all the problems that Blizzard has had. So once again, we have stuck-up game developers talking down to their paying customers, the player base, in an MMO. This is something I've seen before, and so this time I already know the solution is to play something else. No matter how much time I've invested in ESO, no matter how long it has been my favorite MMO, it's just, and part of what we need to look at for this is exactly what this stream is about, the playing with dolls problem. You have all these microtransactions and stuff. You have all of these Crown Store purchases, costumes, cosmetics, player housing, things you can buy from the Crown Store to furnish them. At what point do MMOs become more like playing with dolls than actually playing a video game? This is something I actually want to make a video essay on, where I'm just saying this now on stream, so that we can get the gears turning on all of this. People can start thinking about these kinds of things. I'm thinking of making video. For those who don't know what video essays are those mini documentary type videos on YouTube, usually about 20 minutes to maybe sometimes hours, talking about something. It's put together, it basically is an essay with video stuff kind of backing it up. Think like watching a long show on the Discovery Channel about something that has like panning pictures of things and stuff along those lines. The narration drives the video. It's very popular on YouTube nowadays, but I've never really had much of a reason to make one. But there are channels out there like Veritasium, the entire channel is basically that. There's historical ones too, like for example, Cody from Alternate History Hub had some of that. There's also The Great War with Indy Nidell. and stuff along those lines, where there was kind of a line being drawn between video essay and YouTube video. It's a thing that has become a scene on YouTube in the last couple of years, and I haven't really been part of, because I haven't really done much with narrative-driven stuff since parodying Green Ham Gaming many years ago. But part of what's going on with all of this is, for video essays, I think it's time that I got in on this. And we could talk about ESO and World of Warcraft. I think that Final Fantasy might still have this problem as well, but I really don't feel like bouncing too many MMO subscriptions off of each other. I think most of what I'm going to do with World of Warcraft is I'm going to document and demonstrate this Chromie time problem that essentially keeps players from really having the freedom, because of needing to have 2 copies of their characters, one for progression content and one for literally everything prior to the current expansion. So I want to do some streaming with that, and then I want to make a video essay about that sort of thing. But also I want to talk about this playing with dolls problem, because at some point when MMO devs get lazy enough and complacent enough, like what we've seen with WoW and what we're now seeing with ESO, you end up with a situation where you're essentially playing with dolls. Now, what am I talking about? Exactly what you think I'm talking about. So, you know, when I was a kid, it was boys and girls played dolls. They had doll houses and they had Barbies and blah, 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 blah. And it was so tempting for guys back then to just say it was a girly girl thing to play with dolls. The truth is, as guys, we had dolls too. They just weren't called dolls. They were called action figures. I had a couple of Ninja Turtles once. So, I actually had a couple of Ninja Turtles ones, but there were things like wrestlers, and there was, I think you would even say that like green army men, so to speak, little green plastic soldiers were kind of like that too. Because if you were simulating some kind of great battle with some kind of plastic figurines or something, you were doing the same thing that girls were doing when they were playing with Barbies. So here's what's at the core of all of this. I want to make a video essay about this too. And, closer to home, besides folks like Veritasium, the Mad Season show talking about World of Warcraft is a great example of a channel that does video essays. Usually has like 30 to 45-minute videos, but they're narrative-driven and they're basically small documentaries. I think he goes longer on some of them too. Just some of the long-form content that is becoming more popular on YouTube in recent years, particularly with changes to the monetization and algorithm systems. So, at the core of playing with dolls is exactly what's going on when you played with dolls or action figures as a kid. The toys didn't do very much by themselves. If you pretended, for example, that the Ninja Turtles were beating up Shredder with your action figures, or that Barbie was going on a date with Ken with Barbie dolls, or if you had maybe old-fashioned like paper dolls or, you know, other dolls in like traditional doll houses and stuff. We have a dollhouse, you have even Fisher-Price toys, those little Fisher-Price dudes with the round thing on the bottom, or little people, that's what they were called. You put them inside Fisher-Price cars or something like that, or little Fisher-Price houses or something. You know, various toys were essentially playing with dolls. What's at the core of playing with dolls is quite simply the dolls themselves do not really do very much. You can pose them, you can flex them, maybe. I mean, I certainly could do that with my Ninja Turtles action figures. You watch a bunch of kids' toys commercials from the 80s and 90s, you'll see them playing with action figures that way too. And, you know, making Michelangelo punch the Shredder or something. You know, or maybe G.I. Joes or something along those lines. But whether it was boys or girls, it was a similar thing. Little flexible, little toy doll things. And most of the fun that you had playing with them came from your imagination, not the toys themselves. Yet you might be playing with Barbie and Ken and they get him, oh, they went on a date together and now they're kissing. Or you might be playing with Ninja Turtles action figures like I did. Yeah, Leonardo just sucker punched the Shredder and sent him flying across the room as you throw your toy across the room and your parents are yelling at you, hey, stop making all that noise. So, but what you're doing is the exact same thing. Most of the fun you're having is coming from your imagination because the toys themselves don't do very much. Maybe you can flex them a bit, but most of the fun is coming internally from you. So my question is, with Elder Scrolls Online and other MMOs, have we gotten to this point where the game developers are resting on their laurels because people will pay for MMO subscriptions or they will pay for microtransactions on something like the Crown Store, because most of the fun they have in ESO comes from their own head. And this is the part where we can move a few windows around, and we can, let's see, how was I doing this? This is the part where we can move windows around. Firefox on screen, give me my Chrome over on the main screen here, and let me start with a rather gorgeous looking screenshot that I put on Twitter earlier. Most of these are going to be pictures from tweets anyways. Let's go to browser mode. Are we still linked? No, we are not, because I had to close OBS because I thought OBS wasn't working earlier. Let's see, MultimediaJay Twitter, here we go. Here's what I got satirical about over on Twitter earlier today. Like, la 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 la. Oops. Put the thing back on the screen. Clicking to get my pointer back, and it closes the darn thing. La 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 la, here's my elf princess, blah 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 blah, looking pretty in a screenshot, but I'm not playing the game. The dress is from the Crown Store, the headpiece is from the Crown Store, this is a high elf alt, like level 9 or something, and this is Shimmerine actually, because Alinor in Somerset has more players running around. But here is a great example of what I'm talking about here. Most of the fun, if I'm one of those people, and they exist because the Twitter algorithms have been introducing me to all their posts about all their screenshots of them essentially playing Crown Store dress up with their characters. Are these people even playing the game? Or how about the ESO housing community, where they're like, look at how pretty I made the snug pod, or something like that. Or they took the Panther Fang Chapel Castle and they made it look nice. I mean, I do some of that, but there's some really extreme housing out there where people that really should be designing real estate or, you know, working in architectural design are buying player houses in Elder Scrolls, and they're just souping them up really well. Sometimes I wonder how much money they're spending on crown furnishings and stuff, or are they grinding away that much in the game to get those? Because I know that a lot of the housing stuff that I do in ESO is very, very basic compared to what a lot of these housing streamers do. And the reason is I don't want to be spending a crap ton of money on this game. So if I don't have the feature, if I don't have the furnishings, I don't have the furnishings. But this is basically, I took a high elf alt, and oh look, here's a Crown Store dress, Duchess, personality, also from the Crown Store. This I think might have been from something else, but it's just basically playing dress up. That's really it. So you have somebody, they're constantly making pretty screenshots of their characters like this. You wonder if they're actually playing the game. I can tell you I actually am playing the game. It's just every so often I'm running reshade to make ESO look better, make up for some of the dated features in the graphics engine these days. So that's where a lot of my nice looking screenshots come from. And then I soup them up with Picasa, and they go to Twitter for horizontal stuff or Instagram for stuff that I can turn vertical. So maybe crop this like I did for the Instagram version of this to where it only shows her specifically. She's not an alt that I play a lot either. This is just kind of a mock-up. She doesn't even go around in dresses either. She's a warden, so she's a druid. Yeah, she's the druid with the intense eyes that wears the mask and the big robes and stuff. So this is kind of like, you know, so yeah, there's what's underneath all the robes. I know, right? But here's the thing. Have we gotten to the point where ZOS feels the need to nerf content and not put as much effort into things like the High Isle expansion, because there are plenty of players who do stuff like this? And Twitter, because I'm putting up nice screenshots, Twitter is recommending through their algorithms me to follow certain ESO, not even streamers. Some of these people don't even stream. They just make screenshots all day. And that's the bulk of their fun in ESO. But it brings in the money. When they're paying for ESO Plus or paying for microtransactions and buying all the player houses and doing stuff along these lines. And I can't really say that this one I went out of my way to make. This one, Adeline Lockhart, the Necromancer, I didn't go out of my way to make. I think this robe, this red robe, was a reward from Crown Gems, and I got enough from Crown Gems. I think I got enough Seals of Endeavor to get it, or something along those lines. I had a bunch of Seals of Endeavor left over from some Crown Crate stuff earlier, and so I thought, oh, that looks cool, so I just picked it up, and it goes well with her Necromancer thing and the blood red hair that she has. But yeah, she's a Necromancer. She's not a Templar. But This is inside, of course, the Daggerfall Captain Margot's place, the little Daggerfall geek house that was one of my first player houses in ESO. But the truth is, I actually play characters. She's up to like level 26 or something. I want to have max level. I want to have other alts be max level. So I've been leveling her as a magic necromancer because I heard necromancers were overpowered, and I believe they still are. I mean, they're kind of like Death Knights in Wrath of the Lich King, World of Warcraft. So they were a little overpowered when they launched in, what was it, ESO Elsewhere or something like that. The Elsewhere themed expansions. They were a little overpowered with that kind of stuff. And they've kind of stayed that way since then. I definitely see it's a lot easier to do good healing and DPS with a magic necromancer, and even the most basic spells that using the ones called Criminal Act, or flagged as Criminal Act, by the way. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, cool, pretty dresses and stuff, but I'm not one of those people on Twitter that's constantly looking like they don't even play the game. I assure you that I do play the game. That's why I'm ticked off about stuff like, well, not this, but here's, some of the high aisle fashions. This got a lot of likes on Instagram, by the way. They look a little awkward and uncomfortable, so my joke was, little Monty Python reference, we've ridden the length and breadth of the land only to find out we need more comfortable horses. So, I mean, this is the new high aisle style with the silver rose gear and stuff like that. A little bit of Imperial mix in there with the diamonds and the skin changer greaves, which look more medieval than most. I don't know why, but if you want to have more like knightly type characters, this is how you do it. And then, of course, Lauren Lockhart relaxing on Arteum because it's always daytime there. And if you go on the PTS, everybody's in the new stuff, testing the new stuff, things along those lines. So you basically have the zone to yourself to relax and take screenshots and do whatever. Another offbeat use for the PTS. So these are all fine and dandy, pretty looking screenshots. I've got reshade going and things like that. Then you start getting into stuff like this. So this is one of the promo pictures for Elder Scrolls Online High Isle, the upcoming expansion / chapter is going to basically be the centerpiece of what they're calling the Legacy of the Bretons. The Legacy of the Bretons year-long expansion. So you're like, oh, cool, Breton-themed expansion. There should be Breton overload. It should be medieval Ren Fair stuff like this. Still have my pointer, right? Yeah. It should be medieval Ren Fair stuff like this. Knights, tournaments, nobles. Part of Breton culture is that everybody can make something of themselves. I mean, it really should be. I mean, here you have people dueling and stuff like that. This is Isabelle Valois, one of the companions you're going to be picking up in the new expansion and stuff along those lines. Gorgeous. I mean, this is what it's like, right? This is basically like medieval fantasy jacked to 11, right? Not really. Here's the promo picture of of this tournament area that looks like complete and total Breton overload. And here's what it looks like in game. This is Castle Nevire. And I've been very, very, very critical of ZOS for having this after advertising the game with this. By the way, Castle Nevire is not the central hub of the new zone. So if you're familiar with ESO zone design, the zones usually have only one fully featured city, and then everything else is little towns and outposts and quest hubs. Now, if you are playing through Glenumbra in the original game, which, by the way, was not an expansion, it was part of trying to put the whole game together with focuses everywhere in the world. If you've been in Glenumbra, you've been to Daggerfall, you've seen the preacher preaching about Akatosh in the church. You've seen the, hear ye, someone, it looked medieval. It looked Breton. It was believable. You go to the tavern and there's people singing, dancing, and drinking, It was believable. This is empty. The medieval tournaments that we see in the marketing material here looks like this in game. An empty castle, nobody in the stands, a couple of NPCs, and two people casually riding around on horses, not even jousting with each other. Expectations versus reality. And what other stuff do I have in here? And here's Isabelle Valois Another marketing post. She's the new companion. Gorgeous looking. Obviously, this is souped up compared to its being a screenshot and whatnot. Maybe RTX is cranked all the way. That's her default gear. But the entire point of Castle Navire, and you can see this if you go play it on the PTS right now, you go through a couple of quests to get, that's her, by the way, in matching gear to my guy down here in the corner. You go through a quest chain to get her promoted to Dame Isabel, and then she decides to travel the world. And then this big, gorgeous-looking castle, is that what this is? Yeah, here we go. So this big, gorgeous-looking castle, just Breton overload, medieval stuff everywhere. This looks amazing, especially when I get the, especially when I get Reshade involved and soup things up in Picasa. But even without Picasa, this looks incredible. This is awesome. Look at this huge castle. It's awesome. It's Breton overload all over the place. And yet go out here on the PTS and compare it to something like Daggerfall or Wayrest, two Breton main cities in the original game. And then you take a look at this. You try telling me that ZOS isn't getting complacent and lazy by letting a wonderful looking castle like this just be used for just a few quests to get Isabelle Valois to join you as a companion. That's it. That's all this is used for. And in the tournament area, speaks for itself. What even is this? They couldn't even get a jousting minigame into this either. You got this jousting area, but nobody's charging each other with lances, even though the lances are right there. And that's why I have not this screenshot. Look, here's a nice, beautiful day at the castle. Lances, they're just decoration. What we have here is a repeat of one of the biggest criticisms of Guild Wars 2, that the world felt like paper props. You couldn't even sit in the chairs in the taverns, the few of them that you could go into. A lot of the world of Guild Wars 2 looked 100% cosmetic, 0% believable. And so what we have here with Castle Navire is a travesty that they didn't do more with this, but it fits with the design of Elder Scrolls Online. There's only one fully fleshed out area in every zone. Castle Navire is not that in High Isle. Castle Navire is not that. That's Gonfalon Bay, which has places to do your crafting, places to do other stuff. But why couldn't they do more with this? They went to all the trouble to make this to just have a set of quests to get a companion. You're advertising this expansion as Legacy of the Bretons, year-long story. When people play Bretons, they're looking for this medieval high fantasy that is most completely represented in Castle Navire. And yet there's sparsely anything going on here. So what does this leave? Where does this leave us? It leaves us with the only way we're going to get what was shown in the marketing material is if players go down there and role play. But even when they do, there's no way to joust. As opposed to in World of Warcraft, Trial of the Crusader patch, a minor patch in Wrath of the Lich King, introduced a jousting minigame that you did as part of your daily quests. So years and years and years and years ago, World of Warcraft could get this right, but not Elder Scrolls Online in the 2020s. Riddle me that, ZOS. What else do I have in here? This was just Amaranth and some other stuff. I can close that tab then. I guess I was scrolling through looking for some more stuff to show with that tab there. There you go. This, and these are dailies. You can do them every single day. And I believe you could also challenge people to duels. So you go out with a friend and you can actually joust them at any time when you're not doing your dailies. So if you want to get the full medieval jousting, lancing experience, you fire up Wrath of the Lich, you fire up WoW, you take a friend out to the Crusaders Coliseum, you grab lances, jump on horses, and start jousting in one of the arenas. There's a PvP option, and there's an achievement for winning one of those duels too. And this is with Warcraft folks. This is with Warcraft, humans, elves, dwarves, the whole line. This is with Warcraft stuff. Bretons, on the other hand, are practically suited for this kind of stuff. If you want an immersive Breton experience in Tamriel, there's got to be some medieval-looking stuff in it. This is Daggerfall, by the way. Look at this castle city, and I can tell you now, go on the PTS, there is a lot more going on in this castle city of Daggerfall and the faction capital of Wayrest in Stormhaven than there is in Castle Navire. Gonfalon Bay is, if that's even how you say it, is the centerpiece. That's the fleshed out city in this. So where does this leave us? Where it leaves us is the only way you get stuff like this is if Castle Navire becomes a place where roleplay guilds are hanging out with Breton knights and other characters, and they're dueling or something. Maybe it'll get like right outside of Wayrest on the Daggerfall Covenant side. Maybe there'll be people out there because they like the atmosphere coming out here and populating the area. It is mega servers, so maybe you'll get some people that want to be immersed coming out here and doing what it is. That is the reason why we're talking about MMOs having a playing with dolls problem. Making their own fun. There's nothing wrong with making your own fun in video games. I've done that for a long time. Going all the way back to the NES days with Little Nemo the Dream Master. I used to use Game Genie codes to go to the Flower Garden or the Night Sea stages, and then just pretend my character was goofing around and just goof around in the level. Pretend my character was going swimming in a relaxing night sea, or pretend my character was getting some sun out in a meadow somewhere, and then turning into a bee and flying around, because if you played Little Nemo the Dream Master on NES, you'll know about the mechanics of that game where you feed certain folks candy and then turn into them or ride them as mounts. It's a weird setup. It doesn't match the cartoon that it's based on either. So it's kind of like Capcom taking some liberties with that. But yeah, making your own fun is something everybody does in video games. But if we see ZeniMax, if we see ZOS do this to this gorgeous castle, which is about as Breton as it gets, if we see ZOS do this to Castle Navire, have they gotten to the point where they are resting on their laurels and basically this is not as immersive as Daggerfall. It's not as immersive as what Daggerfall is like. Okay, let's close some of these that we don't need anymore. So Pretty High Elf, Adeline, no thank you. Okay, there we go. This is what we compare it to. See, that we don't need anymore. We can get rid of this and just condense it down. So Daggerfall is more believable than Castle Navire is. Now, Gonfalon Bay is pretty nice. They got a maritime theme going on and stuff like that. But, I mean, bottom line, you're attracting nerds with this stuff. They play Bretons because they're looking for stuff like this. Or more than just a couple of quests to get Isabel. more than just a couple of quests to get Isabel Valois to join you as a companion. Yeah, and then they're certainly not looking for large sections of the castle to be closed off. I might play through, I think I might actually try out the main story in the PTS and see if the main quest unlocks more in Castle Navire. But the thing is, this wonderful looking castle so far is considered complete when you get Isabel Valois knighted, so to speak, and she joins you as a companion. That's it. They went to all that trouble and they built all of this for just to be a little side hub of just a few quests. But what has ZOS been focusing on? The card game. Legacy of the Bretons, Breton expansion, Breton overload, all of this medieval stuff. And yet one of the features they're plugging the most is Tales of Tribute. Basically a Tamriel version of Triple Triad, the card game in Final Fantasy. Nothing wrong with adding that into the game. But when you see developers whining about limited resources in there, even with /Lurk in his streams, when you see MMO devs being like, well, do we have the resources to do this? Do we have the resources to do that? And then you see them blow off something like this that would fit so wonderfully into the theme for this expansion in favor of a card game, you have to ask yourself where their priorities are. So you go here and it's empty. Now, they could put it in so that at certain in-game times, stuff happens. But otherwise, the only thing that's left is for players to come out here and make this zone come alive. And even when they do, they won't be able to joust. Meanwhile, World of Warcraft. You had daily quests to go jousting, and you could also challenge players to jousting duels in an off patch in the expansion, not the main patch of the expansion. Let's also not forget Daggerfall versus Castle Navire. Let's put this over here. Let's also not forget Daggerfall versus Castle Navire. Daggerfall in the original game, which didn't have an emphasis on Bretons, feels more, and Wayrest too, feels more believable and immersive than this is in an expansion that is heavily focused on Bretons. How do you reconcile that? And so if this is the way that these devs are going to be doing this stuff, I really have to wonder where their priorities are. Let's see here. Some folks I talked about this in the Vendalian Society, and I was just rolling my eyes at half of this crap. Fortunately, nobody's banned me or anything because of it. Quite frankly, people have been unfollowing me on Twitter because of this crap. Like, I'm not going to lie to you to keep you happy. That's tyrannical positivity where you must be happy all the time, no matter what. That's not the way it works. Let me see here. I, for one, see no issue with it. The card game is solid. Sure, I can see wanting more out of the castle, but that has little to nothing to do with the card game IMO. Maybe we'll see something in the future. Little to nothing. These devs are always whining. Whenever players ask MMO devs, whether it's Blizzard or ZOS, whenever players ask the devs to do something, one of the constant responses you keep getting from these people is, we only have limited resources. We can't do everything that we want to do. Never mind what the players want us to do. We can only do so much. And then Elder Scrolls Online exists for years with your weapons getting stuck to the ground, your characters walking on them while they go crazy with the Crown Store and microtransactions. Hey, speaking of microtransactions, next prediction. Instead of fixing Castle Navire, can I do this without closing it? Okay, good. Instead of fixing Castle Navire, they will retcon or shoehorn in a player house that looks like this castle for $100 unless you catch a crown sale. Because the quick cash in is more important to ZOS than making this world actually believable. As in a series, Elder Scrolls, where the single player games were built and Elder Scrolls has fan bases based on the world being believable. Morrowind, Oblivion, especially Skyrim, Radiant AI, Radiant Story. I know that ESO is a cross between an MMO, an Elder Scrolls game and an MMO. It's a 50-50 split on its best. But I'll just say this. You made an incredible castle in a Breton expansion. You made an incredible castle, ZOS, in a Breton expansion that is just a side quest hub to get one of your companions. I realize it's the design to only do a lot with one thing in every zone. Daggerfall and Glenumbra, Wayrest and Stormhaven. Everything else is small towns, outposts, and quest hubs. But you built this. And for the record, 2014, when Elder Scrolls Online was a crappy WoW clone with an Elder Scrolls coat of paint, was a long time ago. We are long past time for ZOS to invest in their own world and making it believable and not taking hints from Blizzard or design cues from Blizzard in terms of blowing stuff off. I realize constantly moving to don't recycle content. I realize constantly moving to new stuff has been a standard because of the way Blizzard did things. And then the industry took note of that. Elder Scrolls Online is not a game where the rest of the world becomes obsolete just because something new came out. there would be, you can play anything in ESO in any order. There is nothing stopping ZOS from iterating on something they've already built. And I'd like to head off at the pass the criticism that if they do this to Castle Navire, they have to go back to Morrowind and do it. They have to go back to Somerset and do it. So what? You can play Elder Scrolls Online in pretty much any order you want. Might screw up some of the stories, like the Stibbons quests and stuff like that. But the game fundamentally is about player freedom, and the world actually gets larger as the expansions come out, as opposed to we care about Azeroth, then we care about Outland, then we care about Northrend, then we care about Ulduar, then we care about Crusaders Coliseum, then we care about Icecrown Citadel, then Cataclysm comes out, you know, and the shift is the focus in WoW is always on what's the latest. ESO doesn't have that. It doesn't need that. And it should not get to the point where you feel like great looking stuff like this is just cosmetic, like the pretty dresses you can get for your characters from the Crown Store. No, you advertised this, you delivered this. What more do I need to say? The only way that we get anything close to this, is this like fast food? Is this like going to McDonald's, ordering a Big Mac, and you're like, it doesn't look like it did in the picture. This isn't fast food. We're talking about how you present the game versus what people are actually going to see when they go over to this zone, unless there's people role-playing and hanging out. The only way this gets populated and looks anything like this is if players have a lot of reason to hang out around here. Do they? It's not like Leonin, in ESO Blackwood. It's not like Leonin in ESO Blackwood, which was the fully featured city in the zone in that expansion. Where there's always a lot of people because you can do your dailies there. It's like Stormwind and Orgrimmar all over again. Same problem in WoW, where the main faction capital is where a lot of people hang out, or the main expansion capital in certain expansions because of convenience. No matter how convenient they make it in the world, to where, it's just an extra step to have your character in Darnassus most of the time, but go to Stormwind for the more important stuff. They don't want to take that extra portal, and then portals got nerfed. No, I mean, part of what I'm going to do, and don't forget, in the 2000s, WoW was able to do this. And there's no reason lore-wise other than the Argent Crusade for anybody to be doing any jousting. Speaking of which, what was the other thing that one of the folks said here? Daily jousting daily was hell. Everyone just cheesed through it, and their friends weakened the mobs of the attacks. Well, I actually did it right, but it did get boring, etc. But there was PvP in there. There was PvP in there, and the bottom line is, no matter how you want to like remember Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard made the Crusaders Coliseum more believable. If you didn't like the jousting dailies, and I think half the problem is that they were dailies, and you were grinding things like champion seals, so there was a grind that made this not interesting. If you didn't like that, that's just your experience. Bottom line is Blizzard put in more effort to make this believable, as opposed to, there's the lances, but nobody's going to be able to use them. They're props. You'll come in, you'll do your couple of quests to get Isabel Valois knighted as a dame or whatever. It'll end on this little thing way over here, and then it'll just be this. So the only way this looks anything like the marketing material is if players make their own fun. That's why we got to talk about playing with dolls being a thing here. That's why we have to talk about this kind of stuff. Because let me just mention something. We're talking about this World of Warcraft stuff. Let's leave Castle Navire on screen for this. Let's talk about this World of Warcraft stuff. One of the things the Blizzard developers have said over the years is that the world itself was a character as far as they were concerned. They were treating the World of Warcraft, they were treating Azeroth and Outland and everything like it was an actual character in the game. And that's why they put some care into making it believe, with limitations, of course. But Whether you were hanging out in Shatrath or in Outpost or out in Nagrand and Burning Crusade, or whether you were in Stormwind or whether you're in Goldshire, there were reasons for people to like the places and want to hang out there. It wasn't the case where you one and done everything because all there was a couple of quests and maybe a merchant. Like, ZOS is in the best position out of all the MMO folks out there, with ESO being a major MMO based on a major IP. ZOS is in the best position to go back and add more to any of these outposts to make them more believable, more alive, and more real. You know what the worst thing is going to be about Castle Navarre? I almost said Castle Nathria, which is a raid in Shadowlands. You know what's going to be the worst thing about this? Imagine if somebody programmed an add-on to add jousting to this area, and an add-on was doing what the devs should have done in the first place. That would be the ultimate slap in the face. Like, take the model for one of these lances. I mean, the ESO housing catalog add-on adds extra graphics into the game. You need the add-on in order to see them. But what if somebody set something up where they could create jousting through an add-on using the graphics like these lances? It would be buggy and stupid, but it would be better than what's going to be there. You go to this place in game when you're done with the quests, and you just have some folks casually riding horses and a few NPCs. Nothing at all like this. Nothing at all like what the marketing, Legacy of the Bretons, Breton this, Breton that. Where's the immersion? Where's the giving a darn about the world? No. Instead, we have, that's the way we've always done it, ruining something that otherwise would be pretty darn good in ESO. Gonfalon Bay is pretty nice, but if you build something like this, do something with it. Anybody else say anything in Discord? No. Just a few folks disagreeing. Look, I'm just going to say this. This was the case with WoW. It is the case with Final Fantasy and Square Enix, by the way. And it will be this way with ESO. If you make excuses for the devs, they have no reason to make things any better. And then you're sitting around waiting for the game to, in some way, take a hit or take damage or something like that in order for there to be any chance of turning this stuff around. It took scandals galore at Blizzard, which sidelined the development of Shadowlands, for us to start hearing the stuff from Ian Hazakostas that we hear now. I would even go so far as to say Ian Hazakostas should leave the company and somebody else should be saying the stuff that he's saying about World of Warcraft Dragonflight. But think about it this way. Corporate influence wants to maximize profits. Corporate influence wants to maximize profits. If you can do that either by putting effort into a game or coasting, because people will just put pretty screenshots on Twitter. This is my wood elf princess in the new dress. This is my gorgeous looking cottage that I made in player housing. This is my latest cobble of a locomotive that I made by using up all the furnishing slots in one of my player houses. You know, if you can make more money off of people making their own fun as opposed to putting effort into the game so it's actually worth playing, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you coast like that? That's why we got to hold these companies accountable when they slip closer and closer into this direction where more people are finding more fun from things like housing and cosmetics than they are from the game itself. And it's becoming more and more of a thing. Can't let these companies... Let me just say a little something about video games. Video games should make you want to be better at them. Video games should make you want to get better and improve. When you play, for example, Elden Ring, super popular right now, by the way. When you play Elden Ring and the game kicks your ass because it's a Souls game, and you have to get better in order to not keep getting "you died" on the screen every other second or whatever. That's a game that's challenging you. You go in, you're not good enough, so you want to get better. You want there to be a sense of concrete progression as you get better at the game. Games that just hand you everything, don't have any challenge to them, it's like Second Life. It's like, the fun I have in ESO because the game is having trouble staying stable in Cyrodiil or whatever, if the fun that I'm having in ESO is from pretending to role play with pretty characters with crown store dresses, that's a game where the devs aren't putting in enough effort, quite frankly. And if Slash Lurk gets his panties in a wad or whatever, and it's like, I don't like when people say bad things about the people working on this game. Like, no, finished product matters. Think about, for example, the people that were working hard on a game that did poorly. It was just horrible to play and took like 7 or 8 patches before it was finally what it was like when what it should have been when it first came out. So most of the game's popular existence as a popular game was a giant beta. Do you really want to be talking about that for the rest of your life as part of your accomplishments as a game developer? No. So, and you think about, for example, World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy. I think there's kind of more of a 50-50 split between cosmetics and the ability to have fun in the game and having a lot of things to do. But you get to the point where people are happier because of the Crown Store than they are because it's Elder Scrolls, you have yourself a problem. And that's why I'm talking about, and I actually want to make video essays about, especially if this goes, here's what I'm thinking of doing. I mean, I'm thinking of doing a video essay about World of Warcraft's Chromie time problem, comparing ESO to World of Warcraft, making a video essay similar to Mad Season. I'm thinking of making something like that. We'll do that one first, maybe, which means I might go quiet on the channel while I'm working on it. I also want to kind of take place some stuff in a direction that has more videos. I used to make relaxing nature videos, but I've got such great visuals in the games like ESO because of Reshade and the like, and also Picasa as well. I could probably make some nice looking nature videos with in-game scenery or something. But I have a lot more creative options available when I finish up the current tech video thing right now, and I'm looking to do something else. But this playing with dolls problem, where what we have here essentially is people playing with virtual dolls. Most of the fun is coming from their imagination and not from the product itself. That's something that MMO developers need to be very seriously looking at, because major properties like Warcraft and Elder Scrolls should not be having this problem. We don't want a situation like what we had with Warhammer, where the game wasn't all that great with Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning, at least outside of PvP. The world wasn't very believable. There were bugs, and there was other crap going on. And the hype versus what it was when it launched was a little too detached from what it actually became. But I know that there were people out there, myself included, who are familiar with the Warhammer brand, and so we put up with that game when we really shouldn't have, just because it was Warhammer. ESO should not sink to that level. Nor should any. World of Warcraft shouldn't sink to it either. Final Fantasy, definitely not. Final Fantasy is a different beast altogether. There's some design problems in Final Fantasy that are holding the game back. But because it's the darling angel MMO to so many people that are mad at Blizzard, I don't know if Square Enix really has much of a reason to even put effort into that stuff. There's so many fans of Final Fantasy XIV that just adore the living daylights out of that game. It's like nothing can go wrong with it. And that's exactly the kind of fanboy crap that keeps these games from getting better and staying better. Let people off the hook, don't hold them accountable, they'll coast. And then we'll end up with situations like this. Or situations like Burning Crusade Classic getting bastardized by a boost service, even though it's only available once per account. But you can look to Mad Season's video essays for some wonderful examples of that. I hope to make a video essay out of this, but if I do, it will be after ESO High Isle goes to retail. Because what we have right now could very well be a heavily nerfed test realm that is excluding a lot of things to not spoil stuff. I mean, there isn't even music in the zone yet. It just plays Leowin music over and over again. And I seriously hope that ZOS isn't thinking of launching High Isle with Blackwood's music. And the bards are singing Fargrave songs from ESO Deadlands. So, see, it is late April. When was the game actually, when is High Isle actually supposed to release? June? They got another month of development or so. And I just hope we're not waiting for the patch for this kind of stuff. I have half a mind to cancel my ESO Plus subscription if they're going to not do any of that kind of, if they're going to do that kind of stuff. All right, we'll fix it in the patch. Sorry. The release date. I went through that with Skyrim. I had the crappy June 6th. Okay. About another month of development or so as at their fingertips. Let's see what they do with it. I don't want another Skyrim experience, though, where I play through the main quest with the Markarth bugs, and then they spend 3 months putting together the patch instead of delaying the game. The patch that fixed Skyrim took 3 months when they could have just delayed the game. But the bean counters wouldn't like that now, would they? MMOs have a playing with dolls problem. As we head into the 2020s, they need to take a very, very serious look at whether the fun from the game actually comes from the game itself, or if their fans are giving them a free pass by making their own fun from their imaginations. Because if it's just your imagination, that's where most of the fun comes from, you don't really have all that great of a game. And I've experienced that before. Morrowind had some very serious problems with like the combat system and things along those lines, and the difficulty curve. Your character went from getting beat up by mud crabs to being a god, jumping over mountains and one-shotting everything, depending on how you leveled up your skills. Even with the difficulty all the way up. But I remember when most of the fun in Morrowind that kept me playing was coming from me experimenting with mods instead of the game itself. But that was a single-player environment. These MMOs that demand constant subscriptions in many cases should be evolving on their own and not leaving the fun to the players' imaginations. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.